Perfect. So you're all set, Sharon, and go ahead and do your thing.
Thank you. I am calling to order the Aberdeen Architectural Conservation District Commission public hearing to order at 4:06 on July 9, 2026. Commissioners present are Ed Bradenberg, Sharon Cayley, and Helen Pillsbury. Today, the commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Aberdeen Architectural Conservation District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. We will begin with a design review, application number 26.1055AB. That's
Sharon, sorry, the meeting minutes for June. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I mistook that. Yes, let me reverse for a moment. The first order of business is reviewing the meeting minutes from June 11, 2026. Any comments or alterations on them?
No.
Ed, you're on
Sorry, I
mute.
was muted. No changes.
Okay, I've reviewed my notes and I don't see anything I wish to correct either. Can I suggest that we accept them as written?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yay. All right, the meeting minutes from June 11 to 2026 are accepted. We will now proceed to today's agenda. Design review for application number 26.1055AB. That's 1936 Beacon Street. The applicants are present.
Okay, there's Adam. All right.
He's on mute.
Yes. Adam, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Great. All right. So this package is for a Saloniki Greek restaurant. They're going to be taking over an old Amelia's Taqueria. So this package consists of one set of base of halo letters, which is what we're seeing right now. This will also include one set of non-illuminated letters that'll say Greek and one blade sign. Yep, there's the blade sign. And there's the Greek. And yeah, so this is what the storefront will look like, similar to the other storefronts that are out there. I did include a package of the previous storefront and their neighbor. So it's pretty standard, nothing strange, nothing wild, just using the same signage package as what Amelia's is using. A set of halo letters, a set of non-lit letters, and a blade sign. This is also the same as their neighbor, which is a Far Out Ice Cream, which I actually came before you guys a couple of months ago.
And the signage looks great, Adam.
Thank you.
Terrific. Great. Thank you, Adam. Anything else?
Nothing on my end.
Okay, terrific. Commissioner, so I'll hand it over to you. So just to inform you, so staff is recommending approval as submitted with the provisos that any holes from the previous signs are utilized when possible, and when they're not used, if they're filled and repainted. But that's my only proviso. So I will turn it over to you.
I just have one question, and I think the answer is yes, but I apologize because I did look at this beforehand and I missed that the neighboring signage was also shown in this package. But it sounds like what Adam is saying, just to confirm that the size of the lettering, this is very compatible and similar to the neighboring businesses, including that far out that we just approved a month ago. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. I agree with Nick's comment, and I don't have any other comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I think it looked great. I think in this picture, it's actually it's a little bit further down, isn't it? It's past where the Starbucks sign used to be, closer to you can kind of see the other signs
Right.
down there a little bit. I think
Yes, Starbucks used to be way there. Now that Starbucks is now Far Out Ice Cream.
That's
This was an
right.
old
Yeah.
Google image that we took.
I think Far Out's a little bit
Mhm.
further down. I mean, I think the sign's great, but yeah, I think where this sign is where the bank is now, and then the Starbucks is to the right of it. I think it's all a little bit further down, but that's neither here nor there. I think the sign, I have no trouble with the signs at all.
Great.
Well, if all of the commissioners have weighed in, I have nothing to add to the other commissioners. Would it be appropriate to move on to public comment?
Sounds great.
Any public comment, Nick?
Okay, if you're here for public comment for this application, you can raise your hand in the Zoom platform. There's a little button at the bottom of your screen. Okay, seeing none, let me just double check and make sure there were none received online. And I'm not seeing any other public comment, Sharon, so we can close it for this application.
Okay, in that case, then I think it's suitable that we move on to voting on this application. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
With the provisos that any holes left from previous signs be filled in or otherwise reinforced?
I think reused if they can be otherwise filled in. I think that was
All right.
the language we were suggesting.
Yep.
In that case, I agree with my other commissioners, so I'll take a vote. Aye.
I
All right.
Terrific.
Design review for application 26.1055 AB is approved with provisos.
Thank you,
Thank
Adam.
you.
Appreciate your hard work.
So thank you guys so much.
Have a good day.
Okay. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions. We move on to application number 261100. That's 2 Egremont Road.
Okay,
Is the
I see,
presenter here?
yes, I see Eric. Eric, I got you unmuted, and then Adela, or is it just you talking today, Eric?
I think I'm just talking.
Okay.
I never know if Adela wants to add anything, but can you hear me all right?
We can hear you
Yes,
fine.
thank
Yep.
you.
I'll even, if you like, try and let you see my face. No,
Oh,
that's not working.
we've
Never mind.
disabled the cameras, Eric. Yeah,
Never-
we've
never
had some
mind.
issues
All
in the
right.
past. Yeah, yeah.
Let's move on then. All right.
Yep.
So the address of the project is 2 Egremont Road. And many of you are familiar with it. The main building is very nice. We are talking about the garage behind 2 Egremont Road, and you'll see this really clear. That's why we refer to this as 5355 Cummings. You can see it kind of a little bit in the highlighted pink there. The main building, we're not doing anything with. The image kind of on the left here, you see the garage. It was formerly a garage with a 570 square foot living space above it. It has for a while now been a two-family with a 570 square foot unit on the first floor and a 500 and something square foot unit on the second floor. We have received zoning approval to add a third story and to make the second unit on the upper floor into a 3-bedroom apartment. So what we're here today is to show you how that's going to kind of look. So if you're going to scroll to the next page, I think the next page will have the next page here. Yes, this will have the plans. So the drawing on the upper right shows the 1-bedroom apartment, more or less in the configuration it's going to be in the future, and that's the configuration for the future, more or less the configuration it has today. The second and third floors would become a 3-bedroom apartment. And so you'd have 2 bedrooms, 2 baths on the second floor, and 1 bedroom, 1 bath, living kitchen on the top floor. So this is the elevation that you see here. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of the presentation. We are not going to do much of anything to the brick. We really want to capitalize on it, puncture a few more windows on the front to make it a little more friendly, and accent the garage door that you see on the first floor on the upper right here, as treating it as kind of infilling that opening, but being honest with what that was, and trying to kind of echo the garage door opening that you see. So that's opening into a living room on the left and a bedroom on the right, and we want to kind of use a series of vertical windows in order to echo that usage. So what we're showing on both the lower level and on the top floor is a stained acre panel. So if you're not familiar with acre by Modern Mill,
Sorry, Eric, not to stop you though, but you're breaking up a little bit.
I've lost him entirely, Nick.
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
Can you?
You're still
Can
very
you hear
choppy,
me now?
Eric.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's very choppy.
Not sure what I can do about that. Kind of moving around to see if I can get a better
Oh,
internet
you
connection.
sound great there, Eric. You sound
Yeah.
great there.
All right, if I need to, I can jump to my phone, and maybe that would work better than trying to access on my computer. But let's try and get back to it. So anyway, I'm going to go back kind of to the beginning of the exterior envelope. We want to preserve the brick that's there on the first and second floor, and then add the third floor as a kind of an up story, which is a different material, but still a natural material. And so we're proposing the Acre, which is a new product by Modern Mill, is a recycled product that is pressed and can echo wood. And so we want to do this in kind of a dark pattern, a dark stain, to make it feel like those kind of gray boxes that you would often see added to a brick building. And so we're proposing a V-groove siding that gives us that vertical expression, different from the brick, but see on
Lost him again.
an upper story addition to a brick building. Oh dear.
Okay,
I'm going to try calling in on my phone, see if that helps. And
okay. Commissioners, while Eric is doing that, I'm just going to show you some. I will. Sorry, someone say my name. No, I'm going to try to. While Eric's doing that, I will show you. So, this is the existing condition of the property. So you can see from its surroundings, you have a kind of Art Deco style building on this side of the property. You can see this is Commonwealth Avenue here. So this is Art Deco. We have some non-contributing structures here, but they also take the influence from the surrounding neighborhood in terms of the brick and the style of the building. And then you have this beautiful what was once a single family home. I'm not sure of the current, but you can see that the styles are significantly different. This it appears as though on my research that there was some sort of cornice line here, but I haven't been able to locate any pictures of what that looked like. So because we don't know, I was working with the design team to come up with a solution. We just decided to leave that as is. Eric, I was vamping in your absence. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. We can hear you
Yes.
great. Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
Great.
So I was just giving folks an
Yeah.
idea of the context of the surrounding community, just so they understood that when we're making our deliberation. So if you want to pivot back to your what
No.
you were speaking of, you were speaking of the cladding material for the
Yeah.
addition on top. Yeah.
I appreciate that a ton, Nick. I could hear everything you were saying clearly, so that's what it's a little confusing. But thank you for doing that. Yes. So again, on the upper right, you see the main elevation that faces Egremont, or faces not Egremont, faces Cummings Street. And so it's a two-story garage right now, and the only windows on the front, as you just saw in the image, is the garage door. There were windows on one side of this, which you see on the lower drawing, but the rest of the building is pretty stark. And we want to preserve the brick. We want to work with the existing brick. We're going to clean it up and use that brick. We definitely want that garage entrance to still be kind of clearly what this building was, and be honest with that. So in the elevation, you'll see that we are infilling it like they had done there, but in a little bit more fine grain, making the windows into this pattern of garage-like windows, so that we've got a pattern of 4 by roughly 5, but we have to take out one little area of it in order to separate this into a living room and a bedroom that are facing the street. We intend to have probably the lower row of these be operable, like hopper style windows, while the upper windows would likely be fixed, and might even have a frosted interlayer once we get in there and kind of understand how it is to be in the space. We might propose an interlayer of frosting to give a little bit of privacy on this, but we also want it to very much just feel like that still reminds you that this was the garage to the building to the right. And then above that, we puncture a few openings for the second floor unit. That level has 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor, and then the living kitchen on the third floor with the third bedroom. We want, like I said, we want to preserve that brick, and we want the material on the top and in the infill to feel like the kind of addition that you would often see in a brick building like this. You would often see the addition on the top floor be made out of wood or a somewhat cheaper but very natural material. And so what we're proposing here are acre panels, which are manufactured by Modern Mill. They are a recycled product that is pressed and stained to look like wood, but to last to have a longer durability. And so in this situation, we're showing a 5-inch exposure. We're showing a V groove vertically oriented in order to kind of mimic what might have often been a board and batten or a kind of somewhat vertical expression, and then we're drawing the windows up on this elevation in order to kind of keep that pattern, and as much as possible feel like it might have looked if it had been designed as a 2-story upper unit as compared to a 1-story. Here on this drawing, you see the existing elevations, and you see how there aren't very many windows. We are adding some on the front and on the side, obviously. We can't on the lower left side, so that's too close to the property line. So that elevation will look very similar, but with the vertical siding above the top of it. On the very top, we've pulled the addition back about a foot in order to clearly define the top of the original building. And on the sides, we kind of sit the structure, the walls right on top of the structure of the existing brick. So we wanted to pull it back a little bit. We've been talking to structural engineers, and it's a little tricky to not have the side walls kind of align with the sides of the building. So that's the current intent. On the lower right here is probably the other most important elevation. It's the one that's facing the main building and really exposed to the street as you come up the street, and you see how it's got the two entrances. It has, we're gonna change the configuration of the windows just a little bit and add a window on the third floor in order to give that elevation the function and the life that it requires. I think at this point I turn it over for questions so that I can kind of fill in any gaps in your mind, if you can still hear me. I hope.
We can hear you fine. Yeah, Eric.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay. Great. Eric, thank you so much for your time. Commissioners, before I turn it over, so I will thank the development team for working with me to come up with a project that has advanced this far. So what I'll say in terms of my staff comments, so staff does recommend approval with the provisos that I do still think that we should work on the setback on the side of the facades. And I also think that there needs to be some additional work at the garage level entry or the garage level door to give it an impression of more of a garage door. So with that, I will turn it over to you for your questions and comments.
Okay, commissioners, do you have thoughts on this?
I have a few comments if I might, Sharon.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. And I would say that in this particular situation, I think it's acceptable to add an additional floor. I think it's important to note the particular design. This is a very small, simple building, because there can be situations where adding an additional floor would not be appropriate. So I don't want to see this as a precedent that that's generally an accepted.
Helen, I'm glad you say that. And when we do make our final decision, we should indicate that so that we're very clear, so that in terms of precedent. So thank you for bringing that up.
So I think it's important that it's a different material for the third floor. That will be an indicator that it's an addition according to the Secretary of Interior standards. That one should be able to tell when a building has been added to and when it's not, so your eye is not fooled in thinking it's part of the additional building. So I think adding using a different material is a good means of signaling that. But I do want to make a few comments that this building, although it's very simple and was originally probably an outbuilding, it is from the core period of the Aberdeen district, from 1915, that first decade of the 20th century is where a lot of our main buildings are from. And so therefore the materials and the design should carefully follow our guidelines. And I think in relation to that, I think the cladding should be horizontal. Vertical cladding is very atypical of this district. I think a horizontal cladding would complement the brick and be more of a I'm trying to find the words from the guidelines, should be compatible with material and character of the property and its environment. And I think that the horizontal cladding would accomplish that. And I also have a couple comments about the windows. I think that if I understood the plans correctly, they were casement windows. I think that they should be double hung windows. That is the style of the majority of the buildings in the neighborhood. And for those windows on the second and third floor, I don't know, other commissioners, if they agree with me, can give their comments whether it should be 1/1 or some other configuration. But I just think that these very plain, there are casement windows in the neighborhood in the streamlined modern buildings, but they have small panes, or like casement windows with small panes, not a big kind of blank window like this. I think this is just not typical of the neighborhood. And I also think that the frames of the windows should be white, not black. I think the black will just pop out and be too prominent. That a white window would just ease in and just be a more amenable to the rest of the design. And I just have one question about the area in the front. I'm not clear about where the front door to this, like where the actual entrance door to this is. And I'm asking that because that area that's paved in front, I'm wondering if there's any way that that could actually have some plantings, or, you know, if it could be something other than just a paved area. But I'm not totally clear about where the entrance is and the access for the entrance to the building.
Eric, do you want to answer that? Oh, I have to unmute him.
Apologies, I muted myself. So the entrances to the unit, as they've always been, are on the right side.
Okay.
So you kind of walk down the path on the right of this image, and then there are two entrances on the right side. There's room there. I don't see any reason that we couldn't do a little bit of planting in front of this. It isn't, I guess, in my mind, in keeping with the garage door, I had been thinking that it would make more sense for it to still look almost like the driveway was there. But we could put planting there if that were felt like more appropriate. I think the first floor tenant would probably very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think either planting certainly would be good. Maybe some kind of paver if or partial pavers if it can't be fully planted. But I think just a square of asphalt seems both not necessarily aesthetically helpful and climate wise black, you know, mechanic attracts heat. It seems like and it's not necessarily a typical material in driveways in this neighborhood. So I think that if could be some other solution to that, would be positive.
I don't think we'd have any issue with that. I can take it back to the owner for sure, but I think that'd be fine. And all of your other three big comments about the exterior wall, I think the owner would be fine with those if those are the majority opinion of the board, like the double hung windows and the horizontal siding are definitely things that we have talked about and gone back and forth on. So I don't have any issue with them. I'd like to go with whatever the majority of the board thinks, and don't think we have any issue with that.
All right. Ed, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I definitely agree about the windows, that, you know, they should be consistent. As far as on the diagram, it looks like on the left that that window or door, that opening isn't there anymore. Are you going to be sealing that off on sort of the other side of the building?
I'm not sure what opening you're talking about.
If you go, Nick, if you go closer to ComAv and then look back at it, there's sort of that little, it looks like it used to be a door, that one.
Yeah.
So
good point.
We're planning to leave that as a window, and infill the bottom portion of it with whatever we use as the top material. Like it was at one point a door, I think. You're right. But it's right on the property line, so we can't really make it larger or move it. But we can make it smaller, kind of quasi infill it with rated construction.
Okay, I'd like to add a couple of comments. I think the double hung windows would be more in keeping with surrounding architecture. The large apartment building to the left, as you're facing it, has double hung windows. And yeah, I think it would be less busy. It's a small structure, so we don't want to add too much to it. Also, I really approve of the cladding should be horizontal, because if you're looking at the pattern that the brick makes, a vertical cladding would be quite disruptive and rather busy. And finally, regarding the window frames, I'd have to disagree a little with Helen on that. The surrounding buildings have either off-white or brown. Either of those might be equally appropriate rather than white frames. The last question I have, and then I will cede the floor. There's a tree growing. It's on the other property line, but adding a third floor, would that disrupt that tree at all?
Good question.
The tree will have to be pruned, but we don't think it'll have to be removed.
Okay.
Okay. And Eric, just so you know, tree removals, especially with older growth trees like this one, will require approval from the commission. So
Yeah,
pruning's fine, but
we-
removal would require, yeah.
We really don't want to remove it if we can. So.
Good, good. The more greenery we have, the better.
And, you know, in this case, it's mostly beneficial to this particular tenant. So absolutely, we're on the
Yeah.
same page.
I have one
Yeah,
more
I do have
question.
one more question, Eric. Was there a curb cut in front of that garage?
There is, I believe.
All right, does that affect your usage of this building?
It might be beneficial to remove it, but we haven't committed to it at
Okay.
all.
All right, it's a minor point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a question about the setback on the top. Is 1 foot just in the front enough to differentiate that this is a new addition to the building?
Is that for me or for the board?
Just in general. I mean,
The board, yeah.
yeah, I feel as though for the most part, whenever these additions get put on, the addition is much more, and there's none basically on 3 sides of the building, and then there's only 1 foot in the front, which just seems very, very it just seems like just kind of putting in there to say you put it in there, but I'm not sure that it really differentiates the addition as being any different than the rest of the building, especially when you look at it from the front. It does look like there's a little bit of trim there, so I think if anything, it's going to just still look like it doesn't really indicate to me at least that is a new addition to the building.
Mhm. Okay, well, have all of the commissioners expressed their observations?
Actually, Sharon, I'd like to follow up on your comments about the windows.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when I say white, I kind of agree with your comment that off-white is probably better than stark white, and possibly you mentioned brown and possibly brown, that would not be as common, or I can't think of a better word, but as black.
okay.
So, but I also want to say that it's important that the window frames meet the guidelines of the district, the materials of the window frames.
Right.
And I honestly, because we're thinking of a dark gray on the top and the white brick, I think we were on the same page that it was going to be white or off-white as far as window frames and trims.
Eric, can you speak to the commission? You were kind of choppy when you were describing the cladding material, but is that a natural material? Is it composite? What is the material made out of?
So it's made out of recycled rice husks. I would consider it a natural material. They basically, you know, when you grow rice, you take the seed and then you've got all this basically the plant that holds the seed. So this is made out of the what would normally be kind of thrown away or burned. And so this company is trying to use that as to make these boards that when you feel them, feel very much like wood. We've used it in a couple of projects already, one in Revere and one in Newton, with a third project under construction in East Boston that's going to be using it. And it's been approved by some historical commissions in Martha's Vineyard and other places. So we feel like I would call it a natural material, although you do have to take the rice husks to a place, press them with an admixture, and then you stain it very much like you do wood in the factory and apply it. And I'm thinking a dark gray color, but not a black, something that has a visual contrast as well as the material will have the visual contrast. And then, like you said, the trims and windows would match the standards of the historic district.
Okay.
Commissioners, I don't think you can get more natural than that, but I would
No.
if you do decide to approve it, I would recommend submitting getting a sample submitted for review.
Sure.
I think we do need to think about the guidelines and that we did maybe differentiate that this is a new addition, adding this new material, because we did recently require 21 Orkney, I think it was,
Yeah,
to be clapboards. And I mean, I think we need to be consistent with what we require or have an acceptable rationale if one property is approved something differently from another. I think that's
yeah.
getting into these new materials. I think it's an important distinction to make or important consistency to be aware of. I do have a question because this is a new material. Do you know, this is for Eric, do you know how long this material has been on the market? And do you know have any information about how it wears, how
Yeah.
often it needs to be replaced, or is it too new to even have that kind of information?
It doesn't have a lot of information about how it wears in the real world because our first building that was completed with it was completed a year ago, and the other two we have are under construction, but one of them has had its panels up for a year and is not showing much aging. So, I can produce what the company has done as far as testing goes. But most of the project, I think this has been on the market for a handful of years. And so it doesn't have a lot of existing buildings that you can legitimately visit in the world, but it has its testing data, which we can provide.
Thank you. Nick, if that material were not used, what would you recommend for this?
I think I think in areas you're saying if we denied that product.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it could go to a simple be like a wood panel. But this sounds like a very promising material, and especially because it's natural, I think it could easily be we could easily write it into the approval as being consistent with the guidelines because it's a natural material. And at the end of the day, we see materials in this neighborhood like wood, cedar, and things like that, stone. And I think this would be very close to that. And I think that would be an easy justification when making an approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I do have one last question, and then I'm going to ask the commissioners to frame a proposal. This is going to be a flat roof, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there would be the normal 2 to 5% slope on the top, but it will appear flat.
Okay.
inside.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Sharon and
It is time
commissioners,
for, sorry, Nick, I just realized that we need to ask the public for their comment.
we do, but before we do that, does the commission have any comments about the garage door area? I know I did, but did you guys have any comments about that?
I would like to understand that a little better. Can you, I think that was another time when you were breaking up a little bit. Can you
Yeah.
explain that a little more? And if we change the double hung windows, how would this fit in with that? Change 2 double hung windows, I should say.
Yeah, so the intention of these windows is that they be one group or two groups that are molded together, where the top probably 3 rows are fixed, and the bottom row is a hopper style window to give them a little bit of fresh air, but also be able to be something that's kind of open towards the sidewalk and keeps the real aesthetic intention is that it look as much like a garage door without really just being a garage door. We actually did in a fixed garage door. The insulation value and kind of living quality wasn't what we really wanted to propose. So we went back and we thought about it should be this. If the commission felt like we should do some double hung windows in place of that, we could respect that. In my mind, it feels like it wants to really mimic a garage door in some way.
In the staff comments, are you, Nick, suggesting that it's not, that it's, this is a double negative. It's not a bad idea to try to replicate a garage door or hint at, you suggest a garage door, but that it should be somewhat more authentic looking around. I don't know what the right word would be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Eric and I and Adela, we went back and forth on what this should look like, and I think they're making progress on the design, but part of me thinks that, you know, this is an early 20th century garage and that this entryway should and could have window openings, but it should look more like a garage door that you would see during that time period. Also understanding the internal mechanisms of the layout of the programming of the property, where there's a divider right between these windows here. But I think there's creative ways of doing this, and I think we're almost there. But I personally, I think we should do something to make it look like an early 20th century door, whether that's wood or like something that looks like wood or something that looks like metal. I think that's up for debate, and I think that's open for interpretation. But I think there's just a little bit more work to do. I think my biggest concern here is the paneling. I think there should be less paneling and more windows. Speaking with Eric, there was some concerns about the lower level and safety. But I think there's a more creative way of approaching this. And I really think that this is a character defining feature of this structure. I think if we get this right, it's going to be a really sharp looking project. And I think we're almost there, but not quite.
So that where there's some of the, it's now being shown as vertical paneling, but where there's like 3 window panes, then vertical paneling. Is that because there's an interior wall
Yes.
inside the
Yes.
building? So that has to be like a solid paneled segment of the
Yeah.
exterior at that point. So would you see more panes, smaller panes, or is it more like the material that would suggest an early 20th century garage more accurately or more
I
suggestive?
mean, I like where they're going with the windows that they have here, but I think it should be less paneling. I think we should work to eliminate almost as much paneling as we could. Um,
Meaning
yeah.
that like, just the amount of paneling that you need to accommodate that wall that's on the interior.
And that's it.
So that the segment of 3 would actually be a little wider, and maybe the single segment might be wide, might not. This all depends on the, you know, this would have to be done taking into consideration the placement of that interior wall. But
Right.
in other words,
I just think there's a more creative way we can approach this, and I think this will make or break the project in terms of the aesthetic. I think we are on to a really interesting design, but I think we just need to approach this a little bit differently, and to make it look more like a garage door.
I have a question as far as if we want that to kind of retain the garage door look, does that mean that we should also keep the concrete in front of it? Because if we got rid of the concrete, it wouldn't look like a garage door anymore.
Are you asking me?
Yes,
Yeah,
like
I think there's creative ways of doing that with a planting plan. I think you could indicate that there was a pathway here in a planting plan. Perhaps it could be replaced with gravel and plantings. I don't know. I think there's really interesting things that we can do with this.
Okay.
Yeah. So should we go to public comment? I know some members of the public had some really interesting comments about this project.
Yeah, let me just, members of the public have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on this application and discussions. Please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. We ask that the public restrict their comments to no more than 5 minutes each. Thank you.
Okay. Great. All right. First up we have is Ava. Ava, go ahead. And we did, Ava, I did send the commissioners your email.
Thank you very much. Just for Eric's understanding. I am one of the original petitioners for this district, and I care about this area deeply. And I'm very happy that you are going to be improving this building, and it looks like it really has the potential to become a very nice structure. And I agree with Commissioner's comments and Nick's suggestion that the ground floor windows look more like a garage door, and there's a way to perhaps distributing those 4 window segments in a sort of symmetrical way, stretch them out a little bit, make sure that you can still accommodate the interior wall on the right side where you are going to have a bedroom next to the living room. I looked at your interior plans, so I understand why you need to have a division between that right side window and the other 3 windows. But I can see that Nick is on top of the game, and he will be working with you on that. And I just want to mention that I do have concern about this is it bamboo husk product that you are proposing? Because I have experience with some new products that are, they are marketed heavily by manufacturers as wonderful replacement for natural materials. And then they just last for 10, 12, 15 years, and then they start falling apart. And the product that you proposed was specifically going to have those vertical grooves. And the commission stated that it would be better to have horizontal pattern, or possibly, and this is for the consideration of the commission, it could be also a plain panel that looks a little bit maybe like stucco or something like this. And in a warm color, I would discourage you from using the cold gray color, because I don't think it would work with those warm colored bricks. And the other thing, please, if you could, come up with some kind of a cornice at the top, so the building doesn't look like it's been sliced off with a knife. You may need gutters, so whatever happens at the very top, there needs to be some kind of a border at the very top. And I think that brown windows or bronze windows would look terrific. Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other public comments, Nick?
Let me double check, make sure that we did not receive any online. Did not receive any other public comments. All right, so commissioners, I'll turn it back to you for final deliberations. Just know that we can obviously approve, reject, approve with provisos. We can also continue the application or remand to a subcommittee. I do not think that this application justifies a subcommittee. We all know how laborious that is, or labor intensive that is. So yeah, so I'll just remind you that, and if anyone has any questions, they can just let me know.
Sharon, I just would
Yes,
like
Helen.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to comment that I think Eva's point about the cornice line is well taken. And my opinion is that I feel like I wouldn't just want to approve this with provisos. I think there's enough that needs to be resolved still. I would like to see this come back. My opinion is I would like to see this come back to the commission. And the commission is so small, to me, there's no point in having a subcommittee. I would just like to see
Yeah, I totally agree. What are your thoughts, Ed?
I 100% agree with Helen. Yeah.
Okay, so the questions that all 3 of us have are significant enough. We'd like to see it again with the answers to the durability of the acre panels, as well as the cornice setback and
The cornice, / setback.
yeah,
cornice
I'm
yep.
sorry, the setback and then the cornice. How it would affect. And hopefully with those questions answered, then I think we can, I
And
think
then
we're
the garage
almost there, Nick.
door.
I think you're
The-
right. Yeah.
The garage door and then the driveway, right, Sharon?
Garage door. Yes, I'm
And the
sorry. I made a lot of notes and they're not all in the same place.
and the
Yeah.
cladding and the upper floor windows, change of design of the upper floor windows and the cladding. I think we need to the design of the cladding.
Okay, so what we've got are the upper floor windows,
All the windows.
cornice,
Yeah.
all of the windows, actually, the cornice, the cladding material, it's new to us. And
The setback.
retaining the garage door look and the setback of the top floor. Have I got all of them now?
And but I think also we're looking at not just the material of the cladding, but we're talking about potentially changing it from vertical to horizontal. So the actual design
Yeah.
of the cladding. You know,
Well, I also had and this is why I want to know more about that material. Some materials do better with, as far as the weathering goes, with a vertical as opposed to horizontal. And I would like to know if this acre panel is affected. I realize it's new, so again, we'd like to know more, but I think we're very much heading in a positive direction. This is a very creative and interesting and helpful design. So.
Great. Eric, are you okay? I'll get this to you in a letter, but are you okay continuing this application and returning at the next hearing?
It doesn't sound like we have an option, but yes, that's fine. And the product is available in horizontal, and we probably still push for that. But I think that's the direction we have to go. Yeah. Yep. Like I said, I don't have any real pushback on any of the comments that we've heard today. We're happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like we're off to a really great start. So I think one more hearing should finalize it then. All right, commissioners, do you want to make a motion
Could I
to
add one?
continue? Go for it, Ed.
Could
Sorry.
I add one more thing to the list? Could we address that the formerly door that's currently a window when you're facing it to the left? That's not in the diagram. Could we add that on?
Yep. Perfect.
Yes.
So Sharon, I'll save you some stress. You only have to make a motion to continue, and then say for the, aforementioned details, and then have someone
Thank you,
second
Nick.
it.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue evaluation of this application 26.1100. That's 2 Egremont Road.
I'll second.
Ed?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Aye.
All right. Okay.
Perfect.
We
Awesome.
don't continue this many things, Eric. This is why.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Okay. We'll see you
Okay.
again. Thank you.
Great. Thank
All
you.
right, Eric.
Yep.
I will get you a letter describing the recommendations from the commission, and we'll see you next month, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now is this a good time now to move on to the administrative review items?
Yes.
Okay. The application number 261054AB, that's 1970-1980 Commonwealth Avenue. I've just lost them. All right, there we go. And the presenter doesn't necessarily have to be here.
Correct. So we're just going to list them off in mass, and then we can make a motion to approve or
Thank you.
reject
I
them in mass.
appreciate the reminder. Okay.
Yep.
Also under consideration is application 261099 AB. That's 247-249 Chestnut Hill Avenue. And that's it for the administrative review. Commissioners, any comments?
No.
Me neither. It all seems to be in compliance with regulations.
Great.
So
Do we need
Public comment?
yes. Any comments? No.
You want to just read your spiel about public comment?
No, sorry about that. Yes.
That's okay.
It's not that I want to cut out the public, but members of the public have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on this application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. Public
Okay.
comments?
All right, let me just double check. Received none online, and I'm not seeing any in the Zoom. So we can close public comment for these applications and go to a motion.
I'll
All
make a
right.
motion. to accept.
Oh, good. I accepted it. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, Ed, I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear you.
Oh, aye.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Perfect.
Motion is carried.
Great.
Okay. We now move on to the advisory review, and that is application number 26.0908 AB. That's 1954 Commonwealth Avenue.
All right. Let's see. I believe Mark is here and Susan. Commissioner, how long do we want to have this presentation? I think I would recommend 15, 20 minutes for presentation and an additional few minutes for comments, and then we can move on.
I agree, because I have my notes from the last meeting and I feel we were pretty thorough in reviewing this. So let the applicant.
Okay,
present,
Mark, you
and
should be
if
able to
can
unmute
keep it
yourself.
to 15 minutes, that's fine. 20 minutes is good.
Okay. Mark and Susan,
Good
I've
afternoon,
unmuted you.
everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I think Susan's going to start. I'm Mark Sangiolo, the architect on the project. Susan is the landscape architect. I believe one of the owners is here, Tony McKenna, perhaps. But Susan, go ahead and start.
Okay, hi everyone. After our last meeting, I think we were sort of a little caught off guard because we were pretty much responding to the general design comments that were issued back in August of 2025, and we had formulated responses and diagrams and made several changes along the way that I don't think that were ever translated into you all. So we sort of took a step back and said, okay, let's go back and look at what exactly this mission style is and how we can incorporate these changes that we talked about last meeting into our project. And so I think we were just sort of off guard because we didn't really get any feedback on those comments that we had made. So we just assumed that the direction we were going in was a good one for from the BPDA support and everything. So anyway, that's sort of our starting point for what changes we've made for the project for this presentation and going forward. So that's kind of the starting point, Mark.
May I share my screen?
Yes, hang on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just to highlight what Susan said, we had responded to all those comments a year ago and never heard boo back. So we kept going. Not sure what happened, but so basically we went back and looked at the mission style. The mission style was in the late 1700s in the coast of California. It became popularized when at the Columbian Exposition at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, and created a mission revival that was popular in the country. So we went back and tried to look at some of the original mission buildings. One thing that you'll notice about them is that most of them do have towers. Quite a few of them. So we were pretty much looking at the different details the railings, the flat facades, etc. We took the comments that the committee made, and we also looked at some larger Mission Revival buildings to try to get an idea of how the additional stories were handled. And then I just want to point out the difference in what you all had approved before and what we're proposing. If you're going to fit into a neighborhood, my belief is that the first thing is the scale should be correct. As you can see, the building that you approved last time is way out of scale with the surrounding buildings. Ours is much more delicate building, much more in scale. Also, look at the axes. The building is off axes by about 4 or 5 feet. That would drive 10% of the population crazy. There are many problems with the previous building.
Mark, can we talk about the changes that you made? We
I
don't
just
need to
want to
talk about
present,
the
Nick. I
previous
just want to
building.
present, but thank you.
All right, you got 15
So-
minutes and then we're going to cut you off.
Right on. So the stairs don't work. They're a code violation. So that's one major red flag right there. There are rooms that don't have windows in them. So I'm not sure how this made it all the way through, or what happened in the process, but that's where we find ourselves. So we took over the design. There's the previous design. We have made some changes based on what you recommended. We're not deaf to suggestions. So here's our revised design. As you can see, it's very in character. It's proportional to the neighborhood. What we did was I'll get into the, I'm going to stop sharing and then share again my other screen. Am I there?
Mm,
Can you all see this?
yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So what we did was, we understand that the tower was driving some of the negative comments, but as we showed that the mission style does have towers, but what we've done here is we pushed the tower back. We pushed about 4 feet, so it went from 17 feet deep to 13 feet deep. I think that helped a lot. We added some character to the front of it. We added a roof on it to try to get into the mission spirit here. Also, we've made the balconies solid to try to get it more flat. We've taken the canted edges off the building. By the way, the existing building does have some canted edges and some battered things on the front, but that's okay. We're after a more flat thing, that's fine. And we added some duplicated sort of the imitated the projecting bays on the existing building at the top floor. Added some blind arches on the parapet, which I think go nicely. Oh, it's the wrong page here. So we changed the balcony doors and windows to simplify them, not indicative of color, but just to keep things simple. That was one of the comments. We get a lot of comments from a lot of people from the city. You wouldn't believe, trying to respond to all these different things. The rear, we've added a top to the head house at the rear. The balconies at the rear here, they can be solid. It's not, we were exploring iron railings for the balconies, but it's not necessary that we do that. I hope I can do this. I would like to keep the canted edges on the rear. It's a little more organic, just at the living spaces, a little more organic facing the park. And that's about it. That's about it.
The one thing I wanted to add is that early in the process and one of the public meetings, the developer did commit to having these be owned residential units. So it's important to them to be able to sell these, that they do have balconies on them. I know that was one of the comments that you all asked about, maybe moving them or eliminating them or whatever, but because they did commit that it would not be apartments for BC students, they feel strongly that they need those balconies.
Yeah, this is 2026 and people like to step outside and get some fresh air, especially after what we went through.
So do you want to move on to
Also, one other thing we did, there was some question about the transformer. We've met with the electric utility and the contractors, and we're locating the transformer in a vault underground.
Can you go to the landscape stuff? There, currently, in our original site plan, we had sort of smaller scale trees along the back of the retaining wall, and in some of the meetings, they requested that we go to 2 shade trees up in the lawn panel in front of the building. So now, in coordinating with the electrical engineer and Eversource, they've decided that the vault should go in the front yard where you see the red box with the X in it, which means we're probably going to lose that tree. And it's 8, I think it's 8 by 13 vault, Mark. Is that right?
Yes.
So what we're thinking is that if we can locate that in the lawn panel, we would still be able to have a consistent frontage along Commonwealth Avenue sidewalk. We could also go back to what we had originally talked about, which would be to have 4 smaller trees, maybe magnolias, a native magnolia or something smaller in stature behind the retaining wall, if we could fit it in there. And we're still not sure exactly what that location will be for the vault because of the utilities, and then there are also setbacks that have to be met. So, but the plan is that it's going to go in that general area underground. So we'll still keep working on that one. But we do have 2 street trees out front. So if we lost that one, the alternative would be to do some smaller ones up closer to the wall. And then the other thing that you all had asked about was what we would think about for permeable pavers for the driveway. We would try and use a paver that's compatible with the coloration of the stucco of the driveway, retaining wall, and the building. They'd be permeable pavers. We'd either use a Teco Block Hydra paver, which were those first ones, and they're permeable, and also those are actually almost 4 inches deep, so they're really good for commercial driveway applications. Or the alternative would be a Belgard paver, the Aqualine paver, which comes in a sort of beigey gray color, or the Newport gray, which is also a blend. But we would get samples of those and get approval on what blends best with the building, the actual building. When it comes to that time. And then also on the stone wall, that was another issue we talked about. And knowing that there's going to be new penetrations, there are going to be infill pieces, there are going to be utilities. If we end up having to we will have to take down a lot of the wall, but we will be very specific in our with our specifications about the actual size of the stones, the range of size of the stones, the coloration of the stone, the color of the mortar, the texture of the mortar, the size of the joint, and then also the precast concrete caps. I don't know that we would be able to reuse what's there. We might have to do that wholesale change, but anything that whatever we do, we will be very specific, and we could even do a sample panel for approval of materials and consistency if it turns out we need to, do larger portions of it. And I think that's pretty much the changes that we were looking at. Was there anything else, Mark?
Nope, I think that's it. How did we do on time?
You're right on time. Thank you.
13:20.
Okay, commissioners' comments?
Hmm. Well, I realize that there's a lot going on in this space, and I regret the loss of one tree, but I recall that the location of the electrical stuff, the last several times we discussed it, was an issue, and I gathered that there's really no other place it can go. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That is correct. They had a conversation about locating it in the driveway. But I wasn't in the meeting. Mark, you were. That they just said that it would be nearly impossible to do construction and have build the vault at the same time, that it couldn't really be in that driveway where they were going to need access during construction. So that was the
Okay.
place that everyone sort of agreed on would work.
All right. The next thing I want to mention is, I recall my comments about the balconies. The changes that you've made are more compatible with the overall design. I seem to recall commenting that the way that the balconies were addressed, or rather designed facing Commonwealth Avenue, added more busyness than was necessary for the design. So if I didn't express myself well, I will be more careful in the future. I think what you've got now is good. And as far as balconies in the back, that's not an issue for me, at least. The other commissioners may feel differently. I realize that buyers will buy whatever they want based on their intended use, but that often changes, especially in this area. So I'm going to leave it at that for the balcony discussion. The last item I want to mention is the handicap ramp, because the location of the handicap ramp seems to directly abut the stone wall that you are suggesting, most of which would have to be deconstructed and then rebuilt. Is that correct?
No, actually, that the retaining wall remains there. It becomes sort of a planter edge in front of the planter there. So that we'd have the steps, then the planter wall that wraps around. The retaining wall could remain there, and then there would be an opening at the over near that pillar that's on the adjacent property. That would be the entry into the ramp. But the wall would be along Com Ave, except for that 5-foot opening for the ramp. It would remain or be rebuilt or whatever. It would look the same.
Okay, I'd like to cede the floor then to the other commissioners. Um, Helen, Ed?
So the electrical box, it's that it's impossible to put it under the driveway, or it just slightly extends the timeline for the project.
it's a very, it's not the easiest site to deal with. Since we're moving a house, we have to move it twice. The driveway is fairly critical to provide access during construction. So it just create almost an impossibility to, the timeline of construction.
And by almost impossibility, like what are we talking?
Coordinating, how when especially with the utility company, when that can be put in, when the transformer can come and work on the transformer, can get really, it'll be very problematic.
I
So
see.
would delay the project by a week, or
No, gosh, I mean, it could delay it by a couple months,
okay.
Hmm.
unless, I mean, they could grant access through the park.
That's another thing that came up in a lot of the neighborhood meetings. I don't know if you all were participated in any of those. People were concerned about, the construction, and I feel like if we did put that vault in the driveway, that would slow things down. The neighborhood would really not appreciate it.
Well, our purview is over sort of the historical and the appearance from the outside. That's why sort
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
staircases on the inside and things like that don't really fall under our jurisdiction.
But you need to understand the problem.
The
Oh,
insides,
we do.
we just go, yeah, we go by what it looks like on the
For
outside.
context.
Yeah, and we did give a lot of feedback last time, and you've incorporated some of it, but not necessarily all of it. Like we're yeah, I would like to see it closer resemble what we had talked about in the last time that we spoke with you.
Which is
And
what specifically?
going back to the sort of what was approved last time, I wasn't on the commission then, so whenever you say you approve this, I wasn't on the commission then, so this is all new to me.
Right, Ed, but you're gonna have to be a little more specific because
So we gave you a
tried to
specific list.
respond.
So if you'd let me
Sure.
finish so we gave you a specific list of recommendations, and then you've kind of addressed some of them, but not all of them. Regarding the balconies and the tower and things like that. I think we're getting closer to what we had recommended, but not necessarily there, if that makes sense.
It doesn't really make sense to me. You're gonna have to be a little more specific for me.
Okay, I can pull up the list of recommendations. I'm assuming that you have them. Did you not?
We don't have them. We took our own notes, but we didn't get a copy of anything.
So since our last meeting, you listened to what we said, and then you just didn't. You didn't make any changes based on our recommendations, is what you're saying?
Did you have
No, we're
notes that you
saying
circulated?
if there's a list that was put together, we never received a list. We took notes from our meeting, but that was it. Is there a list?
No, actually, we didn't create a formal list because this is a design review.
Yeah.
Advisory.
Yeah.
Right.
And that leads me to the next thing, and I don't want to jump ahead of Helen because she's always got good observations, but we've gone over this property quite thoroughly several times. You did simplify the facade, which was one of the notes I took, specifically with the balcony. The windows, I think you took the suggestion that I think I made, but that may not be my best memory. And there is still the unresolved issue of the tower. You added a tower in the back. Can you tell me if that functions as an elevator, head house or anything of
No,
that
it
nature?
it always had a little bit of a head house there. I just added the tile roof on top of it to give it a little more character. So that was
Mhm.
always the access to the roof.
And also, we need 2 access to the roof because they asked us to incorporate a roof garden, or green roof. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
we need 2 means of egress there.
We
Okay.
sort of had it before. We had the stair come up with we've seen these glass kind of skylight doors that open, access doors. We were going to do it that way. But I think first of all, I like the roof we put on the tower. We made the tower smaller, which is great, and this actually improves the access to the roof too.
Okay, well, we haven't heard from Helen on this presentation. I would like to know your thoughts. Helen?
Thank you. I thank you for making some of the changes that we recommended. I do think that the front facade is simplified. As Sharon said, it's not as busy. There's not as much going on.
Mhm.
On the side facade, and I think this on both sides, there's a window that looks like it's like 6/1, and then right next to it looks like there's a window that's 1/1. This is on the side, the west or east elevation.
Hold on.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure, not familiar, but it could be some kind of
Well,
hold on.
Is it just a graphic thing? maybe.
I looked at this from the, actually, this looks different here than what I saw on the, in the.
This is
commissioner.
one side. Is this?
No,
this-
okay, it's different than something I saw previously. So this is actually,
This is going down to the driveway, that elevation.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. It seems like I had seen a rendering where you see the window that's 6/1. There was like a window that was next to it that was 1/1. It seems like it's different now than what I saw. So it's
Yeah,
sort of,
well,
it's sort
speaking of
a-
windows, we're completely open to window suggestions.
Hmm. According to my notes, the only question I had regarding windows was facing Commonwealth Avenue, a lot of arches. And I don't see that on this rendering, which is an improvement.
Commissioner,
think if I'm-
you talked about window, like breaking up the window fenestrations a little more, and it looks like they did that.
Yeah, yeah.
if I see it correctly, there are just the very top under the little
Arch.
peaked roof are arched windows, which to me that kind of echoes the arch of the portico of the original house. Like to me, I find that acceptable. It's kind of trying to
I
relate to
agree.
the
Yeah.
portico of the original house. I have a question about actually the original house and that you like the window frames look pink in the rendering, but
Yeah,
are you showing that they would be sort of terracotta? I mean, they're dark green now, I think.
yeah.
So,
Well, we haven't really gotten too much into color scheme, but I
Okay.
think green and beige would be
Okay.
good.
okay.
We're
So
open
this is-
to
okay.
suggestions.
So
It
that's just showing like the kind of the configuration, not an actual color suggestion.
Yeah, that's basically they're on their own layer with that color as the window. So,
Okay.
and I don't know if you noticed on the bays on the new building, we did this kind of cottagey window that taken from the existing house. I don't know if you're interested in doing that or keeping it different or what.
I think either way would be
I
acceptable.
think that it
Okay.
works. Those are little it's a little sort of pushed out area. It looks like a little
Yeah,
Right.
right. It's a little bay.
Like a bay.
bay. That's what it's
Yeah.
like
Like
a
in the-
square bay. I mean, to me, that's like you wouldn't want all the windows to be that was like 6/1, but
Yeah, eight
just
over one.
that detail area I think is acceptable.
Okay.
When windows open like that, that's what I wasn't clear about. Like from the,
Mhm.
I mean, that's sort of a moot point for us, but
What's that?
do those windows open?
They would open, yes. So
You know,
these would they would open.
in the rendering, there's certain places where it's kind of like a diagonal line. Is that that's not something that actually be in the like those
That-
yeah, those like are those doors on the balconies where like a diagonal line across? What does that represent? Or is that just showing kind of
Oh, this little arrow?
or no,
No,
on the other
on the other
side?
side.
On the white, see, I guess it's a white door that lead. Is that a door? that
Oh,
leads to the
this?
balcony? Yes. And like, so there's like a diagonal line. What does that represent? No, not that. The diagonal line. Yeah, that.
This one? It
Yeah.
it represents the door swing, how the door
Oh,
swings.
okay. Sorry. Okay, so it's not actually anything that's part of the design.
Okay.
No.
No.
Yeah.
One thing that does seem a little awkward to me, though, is the kind of large windows that are a dark frame right next to the. I guess it's a door that leads to the balcony. That seems like to me seems like a little cluttered and a little awkward.
This here?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
right next to that door.
Yeah. I'm trying to, I want to get, this is actually an 8-foot door. I'm trying to get as much light into the living spaces as possible. So I'd like this to be as much glass as possible. It could be a single pane window. I mean,
No,
it could be a
that would not.
picture window.
No, that would not fit the guidelines of the. I think it needs to be a double hung window.
I mean, I can do it so I can try to do it so the three spaces are equal and get the trim to, so the door is not white. It's
No.
just maybe throwing things off.
Yeah, it does a bit. Hmm.
Or maybe with these, how about these, if these weren't double hung, these could be casements too.
No, I think double.
No, that's
Okay.
too
So I'll
disruptive.
I'll
Yeah.
organize this better so the three sides of the module is the same.
Could the door
Mhm.
be in the middle with like a window on each side rather than a door with?
It might be able to be. Usually I try to do it for the best furniture layout, but I'll definitely
Yeah.
look
Oh,
at that.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, actually, Helen, there's enough going on there. I think if you move the door to the center, then that causes other complications. Um, Gets a bit busy, but all right, at this point, I'd like to suggest that we move to a determination. And
Sorry, Sharon, can I make one more comment?
of course, yes.
Thank you, sorry. Actually, I have actually one question and one comment. We kind of, we talked about the balconies in the rear and possibly a railing, but can we look at the balconies in the rear? I'm not totally clear what material
Yeah.
what they look at.
You want to see them on the front?
No, I just want to see what the balconies in the rear would look like. We kind of went over
Yeah.
that quickly, and
Okay.
I just would like to clarify that.
Yeah, well, this is just showing like this. We probably do them all the same. I mean,
So it's really hard for me to see. That's small.
hold
Are
on,
they
hold on,
are
hold
they
on.
are they metal
Um,
railings or is it a solid?
Yeah, they're metal. I'm going to put some sun on it.
It was just to show sort of an alternative.
I mean, see, some of this is or yeah.
Zoom in some though, Mark. It's hard to
Okay, I'll
see.
just let me make sure you have enough time to look at it. Or like the front.
I mean, that to me seems a little less busy. It just blends in with the rest of the facade of the building. Because
Mhm.
this building faces the Chestnut driveway, this building has like both facades are
Yeah.
visible from a public way. So both front
Right.
and back rear facades are important. I'd like to hear what other commissioners think regarding the metal railings versus this solid. Um, and then after that, I do have one more question besides that.
Okay, well, let me just jump in for a moment. The rear facade is going to be heavily camouflaged by the number of trees that are part of the Chestnut Hill Reservoir. So that will help conceal whatever inconsistency we might see. Um, I'm okay with either this balcony that matches the balcony facing Com Ave or the wire or the metal railing. But
We
I would defer to the other commissioners.
we can't take trees into consideration because something could happen and they could not be there in future.
Oh, heavens.
So
Okay,
we need to look at the facade for what it is, I think. So sorry, that's just my opinion at least.
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, Ed, you're lighting up.
Um, I don't have any strong opinions about the balconies if they're going to be there, what the railings look like. I do have a question about the top of the tower. If anybody has strong feelings about that on the front and back,
Right. That was actually the other question I have, and I understand that the the architect has looked at that. We asked it to look at the mission details of the original house and work from that to suggest design of the new building. But I'm curious what other commissioners think about the peaked roof on the towers and if that's successful or um, the right way to go.
Hmm. Well, again, I don't want to cause difficulties, but I don't think that the rear tower facing the reservoir needs a peaked roof.
Mhm.
I think it can be, slightly tilted so that the rain runs off, but otherwise, leave it as plain as possible.
Would that be better for you?
I think it would, yes.
Yeah, it's,
But
yeah, yeah.
again, I will defer to the other commissioners. We're getting into some very, very detailed observations.
But I think that the roof line is important, and I think we need to
I agree.
give guidance on that. I mean, what do you think about the peaked? I feel like I feel like the architect was like following our suggestion, so I don't, but I'm not sure that it's the right thing to do. I'm curious what you think.
In the front,
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I'm asking Ed.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I think I mean originally our whole idea with the tower is that it was sort of you were losing the original house in, and they've definitely done a great job of getting rid of a lot of that clutter. Um
I think you're right,
I
Ed.
just
It does help getting rid of all of the other elements.
And we do appreciate that the tower is slightly smaller, and you are, to the architect, you are correct that the original, the previous plan that was approved did have a tower. I had forgotten that, but that is true. Um, and at this point, this one is probably not any more prominent than that previous.
What do you think of
Well-
these blind arches and the parapet?
I think that's a nice, tasteful touch. It's just enough, but not too much.
Do you want to try, you want to do that on the rear?
No, no, I just like to leave it.
Because it picks up on the curved lines of the portico,
Mm.
so I think that's
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
kind of like the rationale for it being there, that you
Yeah.
wouldn't really have that relationship in the rear of the
Mhm.
building.
I did do this roof at the same pitch of the existing roof, so it wouldn't have to be that. It could be.
Shallower.
Hmm.
And you would probably, I mean, if you were looking at it in perspective, it would
Yeah.
appear more like this.
Mhm.
I think a shallower pitch is, it suggests the main house roof, but it doesn't have to exactly copy the main house roof. I also think,
Yeah, that's a good alteration. I'm with you on that,
and I
Helen.
kind of agree with you, Sharon, that you don't need to have the rear tower not having a peak, like kind of that almost is like a little too much. The change to
Mhm.
make the rear tower.
Yeah.
Um,
And just as an aside, 8 of the 10 samples you showed us were churches, and churches always have to have bell towers. So they call it a mission style for a reason. And on that,
Yes.
on that point, I would like to suggest that we bring this discussion to a close. And I would suggest, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, that maybe we could move on to a determination and encourage the developer to submit a formal application.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think that's it's typically when we do advisory reviews, it's about 2 to 3 advisory reviews. So I think we're probably at a good point. It seems like you're satisfied for the most part with most of the design elements.
Yeah.
So a full application would require renderings and drawings with the application. And yeah, so I think that would be the next step.
and so at that point, would we get the detail of like actually what the windows would, like the coloration of the windows and some of the things that are just not actually
Yeah.
specified yet at this point in this rendering?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a CAD program, so everything's going to be slightly off with the full construction document, not full construction documents, but the full documents, renderings, and line drawings will be more representative of the proposal.
Okay, so, and this is not open to public comment, am I correct?
That's up to you. Typically, we don't take public comment during advisory reviews.
Okay, I'd rather not take public comment unless my fellow commissioners feel differently.
I'm okay with.
and they'll
When
have a
is the deadline for the next meeting?
It's on our website. It should be for the August hearing. It is July 23rd.
Okay, can I do like a placeholder, not a complete
No,
submittal?
it has to be complete.
Okay.
So, if you can just get me some line drawings and some renderings, I think that'll be fine. Plus the application fee, I think that'll be fine. And then you can work on the very fine details. Oh, also the planting plan. You can get the fine details to us at a later date, but yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And the public will have a chance to comment at that time.
I like
Yeah,
the
the pub-
shallower roof.
Yeah, I like it better too.
It doesn't, it makes the existing house more dominant.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Really like that house.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Great. So I
well.
think that's the next step.
Okay.
And then the public will have the ability to comment on anything related to the project. Great. Mark, Susan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank you,
we'll
everybody.
Appreciate
see you at the next.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye.
Okay. All right.
Let
So
me
last
see. Yeah, last item.
is just staff updates. So nothing crazy. So just a couple announcements. We have 2 pending study reports. One for 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue, which is over in Mission Hill, and then the New England Conservatory over in Fenway
Nice.
is currently a pending landmark. So if you're interested in reading those study reports, check them out on our website. Pay special attention to the 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue. I mean, we know a lot about the history about the New England Conservatory, but the 3 to 4 Folsom Avenue is a really interesting building, has a really interesting history. So if you're interested, check that out. And then last but not least, we were supposed to do it in May, but it literally slipped my mind. We do have to take our annual vote for chair and vice chair. So we'll be
Do we
doing
have
that.
a forum?
What?
Do we have a forum?
Quorum, do you mean?
A quorum, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
not
oh,
a quorum.
okay. We do. Yeah, we just have the bare minimum. If anyone wants to relieve Sharon of her duties, she's doing a great job, but maybe someone else wants to take the reins. I would be happy either way.
Do we have a
Um,
vice chair at present?
I think it's
No, I don't
technically
think we have
Ed.
enough people for a
Oh,
vice
really?
chair.
I was vice chair this whole time and I didn't know.
I think so. Yeah, I can't remember.
That's
So
news to me, yeah.
we'll have to take that
We'll have to mind
vote
our
next
P's
time.
and Q's and get it figured out.
I
Yeah.
need like a jacket that says vice chair on it that I could wear when I'm
Oh,
vice chair.
all right.
Nick, can
We
I
don't have-
suggest that we think about it and vote next time?
No, that's what she's saying,
Yes.
the August hearing.
Yeah, at the August hearing. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what
good.
the
Okay.
slide is saying, so that's what would be in the August hearing,
Yep.
not
Yeah.
not now.
And I imagine we should all be here because otherwise we could nominate somebody that isn't here.
Yeah,
That
I
might
was
not
thinking
want
that.
Yeah,
We can-
we do.
We can nominate Kirsten for chair and vice chair.
Oh my
and
God.
vote right now.
That was my thought. We'll all be here.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well,
Terrific. Okay.
can I suggest that we conclude the meeting?
Yes, please. Yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. All right.
Thanks,
See you next
everyone.
month, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Nick.
All right.
All
Take
right,
care.
goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Stay out of the
Bye,
sun.
Ava. Yeah.